Thursday edition of Birds 365. You got Mac and Mac at least for a minute here. See, I thought your feed was going down, Johnny Mac, because you kept freezing up on my screen. Xander tells me, no, Jody, you were the one that was freezing and dropping.
Yeah, you never know what's what here. But I was looking at Jalen Carter stats, and then I came back and you were gone. So I just kept going. And I saw Ed popped up and went to break, and now we have him. The great Ed Kracz.
Hey, guys.
I thought I'd do it to Ed, but I was nowhere to be found, I'm told. So apologize for my...
You're saying Jalen Carter is now disrupting the show, not just football games.
He disrupts everything.
365 now.
Yeah. He has been... Well, let's start with Jalen Carter, because I could not believe the NFL gave Jalen Carter to the Eagles on a platter. I thought he was the most talented player in the draft. I thought he should have been the #1 overall pick if he didn't have the issues. I think he was the most talented player in the draft. Even I didn't think he was this good. This is ridiculous, Ed. This guy is special. And I don't remember the last time — the Eagles have had a lot of good players over the years — the last time they got a guy who has a chance to be maybe the best player in football on his side of the ball. And I think he's got that kind of potential.
That's a lot for 3 games into his pro career.
I know.
That's a lot to say, but it's hard not to love what you see so far. I mean, that punch out of the football that he had on Rachaad White, that's a signature type moment there in what could be. And I said this back in the spring, that he could be the Eagles' first defensive rookie of the year. They've never had one of those. Now, the question is he going to play enough snaps? I mean, he wreaked his havoc on Monday night in just 21 snaps, which, to me is low. Now, I know that the Buccaneers only had the ball for, I think, 47 snaps. So,
yeah,
there weren't many snaps to go around. But, that's the only question that could, in my opinion, prevent him from becoming the defensive rookie of the year, is just how much he's going to play. But, you look at what Carter has meant. I think even to Fletcher Cox. I mean, I think Fletcher Cox is off to a really good start here. And I think some of that has to do with the young guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. They've kind of breathed new life into his game as well. So, it's more than just what Carter and even Jordan Davis are doing on the field. It's beyond that. It affects that whole side of the football.
Carter's been great. David's been great. As you just point out, Fletcher Cox has been great. And usually when you get that kind of push from your defensive tackle position, it makes things easier for the guys coming off the edge, and makes quarterback shakier and looking for a place to spin out to into the arms of a guy coming off the edge. This side, Josh Sweat, the Eagles' edge players haven't been all that good, at least my estimation, through 3 games, Ed. Agree or disagree? And if so, if you agree, where's the edge? Forget about where's the beef. Where's the edge?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, listen, I think they've impacted some of these throws. And we saw the Eagles, I think, try to get Hassan Reddick to get that first sack. I mean, it's 3 games now. He still has the goose egg next to his name, but they tried some loops and some stunts on Monday night to kind of maybe try to free him up, but he just hasn't been able to get home. You'd like to see more sacks. They only have 6 in these 3 games. That's 2 a game, but they're doing a good job affecting, the quarterback spot and where he's throwing the football from. So yeah, you'd like to see the numbers a little bit higher. I love a good sack myself. I think it's a huge momentum changer. It's a very emotional, uplifting thing for a defense. You'd like to see the numbers improve. But again, here, we go back to Jalen Carter. He got such good pressure on one snap that I talked to Marlon Tuapulatu after the game on Monday night about the sack that he had. And he said, man, that was all Jalen Carter. He said he just, burst up through the middle, and forced Mayfield to step up. And he goes, I was just standing right there, so I made the tackle. I mean, that's how easy it is. So, yeah, they're affecting the rush or the passing game, but you'd like to see the edge guys get more involved. And even Josh Sweat, I mean, he was a terror against the Vikings. I think he had 5 QB pressures. But I think those numbers will come, Jody. I really do. I think the sacks will begin to tally up here. We're only 3 weeks in, and I think they'll come.
In the case of Josh, and I brought this up, I mean, he took advantage of a backup left tackle against Minnesota, and he had a huge game, what he should do. And then against Tampa, he's against Tristan Wirfs, who's an all-pro player. So, I mean, to me, it makes some sense. All right, if you're going to face an all-pro player, like if you're rushing against Jason Kelsey or Lane Johnson as an Eagles opponent, you're probably not going to have a great day, at least compared to what you do against typical players or below average players. I think a lot of people don't pay attention to that. I mean, to me, it was logical that Josh Sweat wasn't going to have his best day. Now, in the case of Hassan, he's obviously struggling with the thumb, trying to finish plays. But I'm going to throw it back to Jalen Carter again. The interior pressure is so immediate; they don't have as much time against sacks.
Yeah.
And the Eagles aren't getting the big numbers like they did last year when it comes to sacks, but you see them affecting quarterbacks. I mean, that's what it's about. Sean Desai will talk later today. He'll talk about that, I'm sure. They are affecting quarterbacks. And I think they're carrying the defense that front. And that includes Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick and Brandon Graham and company on the edge.
Yeah.
And it's played great, by the way. Typical. Limited snaps, but typical Brandon Graham.
I'll say this too about Reddick. One thing, and I know the locker room sessions were abbreviated between week 1 and week 2. It was a short week, but I haven't seen Reddick in the locker room much at all. Whereas last year he was readily available, was in there, willing to talk to anybody that had a question for him. This year I haven't noticed that as much. So I'm not sure why that is. I hope he's happy. Maybe he's
the situation.
Yeah.
Is there a situation?
Right.
He's coming off a great season. He sees what edge rushers are getting paid. The Eagles poo-pooed that in training camp. He did as well. Is there a situation?
Well, that's what I wonder is, we haven't seen him. We haven't been able to talk to him. And like I said, he was usually one of the guys you could go to last year. Again, it's early, and there's been kind of the abbreviated locker room. We didn't have a lot of access there between, the Patriots and the Vikings game. And now this week, yesterday, he wasn't in the locker room. So, there's only 2 more days here to see, another short week. So we'll see just how available he is or isn't. And if he's not available, that's a concern because he is a guy that likes to speak and talk to the media. So it's something to keep an eye on, I think.
Jody, you're muted.
The situation gets pushed to the side when you have 0 sacks. Whether he's available or not, even if he were available, he shouldn't be talking about renegotiating his contract when he's got 0 sacks after 3 games. But that's just me. Ed, you haven't had a chance to chime in yet with us here on Birds 365 on who's going to play slot corner for the Eagles. Avonte Maddox out. We knew that they had given Bradbury some reps and some snaps in preseason just to give him a look-see there. Well, now he seems to be the guy they're going to lean on more than anybody else, or at least that's the way it played out game number 1. He is as good an outside corner as he is, but the Eagles don't have a perfect fill-in, come off the bench to fill that position type guy. Are you good with Bradbury being the number 1 guy? I think they'll rotate, but I think he's going to be the number 1 guy going forward playing the slot. Are you good with that?
Well, I would contend that Sidney Brown has a real chance to kind of step in and grab this opportunity. He's listed as injured right now. I talked to him again after the game in the locker room, and I asked him about his injury, because it was announced in the press box that he had a thigh injury. Yesterday's injury report was an estimation because of the walkthrough nature of practice, but Brown told me it was a lower hamstring and he felt fine. He felt like he could have gone back in, but they wanted to kind of take it very cautiously with him because a 1-week injury could turn into a 4-week injury with a hamstring. So, but if he's healthy, I mean, they're giving him time in the slot. He talked about having one-on-one meetings, many meetings during the week with Ronell Williams, the slot coach that the Eagles have. And he said he's very comfortable playing close to the line of scrimmage like that. He said he did that a lot at the University of Illinois. So he wants to continue, he said, to get better, to kind of take some of the pressure and some of those snaps away from James Bradbury having to move inside. So if this kid can get it, he can figure it out, he can get healthy and stay healthy, I think Brown could be the guy that gets the majority of snaps in the slot. Until that time happens, though, yeah, I think Bradbury's going to be the guy that's going to rotate in and out of there, and they'll bring Josh Jobe in. But again, and I think John's talked about this, is that you don't want to move a Pro Bowl or All Pro corner, outside corner, into the slot. I mean, you're impacting two positions there. So I think the Eagles would like Sidney Brown to kind of grab this position and run with it. And he just very well might. So I would say, keep an eye on Sidney Brown's development in the slot, because I think he could end up being the guy that's going to help out there as as these next couple of weeks go on.
I got asked last night, Ed, who the Eagles MVP is through 3 games. It's 3 games. And my answer was Howie Roseman, because they're just out talenting people. They have better personnel. They're not really playing that well, but they just have better players than everybody else. And he's responsible for accumulating that roster. I say that to say this. I do have a problem with some of the decisions on the back end. We're having this discussion about the slot, and we're not even talking about Mario Goodrich or Eli Ricks. And they were kept on the 53, presumably for more of their long-term potential. But nonetheless, they're cornerbacks, and they need a cornerback. And they're already moving Sidney Brown, who's got significant potential at safety, down to a position he's not familiar with. What does that tell you about Mario Goodrich and Eli Ricks?
Well, I don't think Ricks can play the slot. Now, Goodrich can, and he was inactive after having 10 days to prepare to be the slot guy. And they must not have liked what they saw. But, Nick Sirianni mentioned Goodrich again yesterday as somebody that's in the mix. But
they might have to use him this week because of the injuries. If Justin Evans can't go and Sidney Brown can't go, Mario Goodrich has got to play.
Yeah, and maybe Eli Ricks too. I mean, that's concerning for sure. Short week, a pretty good wide receiver core from the Washington Commanders. But, you're right. I mean, but listen, you can't account for 2 of your slot guys getting hurt. You had depth there.
No.
Zach McPherson, and you hope Maddox would have had an injury-free season. Didn't happen. So now you're kind of scrambling a little bit here. And Sidney Brown is familiar with playing in the slot from Illinois. According to him, he said he feels more at home at the nickel spot than he does at the safety spot. So, it's a shame that he kind of tweaked the hamstring a little bit, because he probably would have saw much more time on Monday and probably grew into more of a role even on Sunday. But, you're right. You'd like to see them have a little bit more depth or whatever you want to say, but they've gotten injured. And Brown's a 3rd-round pick, a 4-star player. Red Star
player. Well, I guess my only question is, and Sidney did play, down in the box, mainly at Illinois, so he's used to playing near the line of scrimmage, as you mentioned. But one of the things I think we all say, and we said it about Bradbury, well, you don't see 2 inside corners in this league. So you think about Eli Ricks and say, well, he's 6'2", he can't play inside. Well, I mean, they're saying Bradbury can. Sean Desai said, no. So I don't know. I think if they're on the roster, they got to help the team. And you're right. Yeah. You can't legislate injuries. It's not their fault that Avonte Maddox and Zach McPherson. But if they can't help the team, I'm starting to think about, all right, N'Kobe's coming back. Braden Mann's got to have a spot at some point. These are the first guys to go. Maybe Kentavious Street as well. If they can't help,
Yeah. Well, see, with Rick's an undrafted guy, Goodrich an undrafted guy, Brown's a 3rd-round pick. I mean, you're going to give him every opportunity to get on the field. And Rick's, I think, would have to be trained to play inside. I'm not sure he played in the slot or in the box at
No,
Alabama.
I'm sure he hasn't because he's
so
6'2".
he's not going to help you in there. You're not going to throw him out there. That's a huge liability to put him out there in the slot. So unless he's being trained, the Eagles have this slot coach, Ronell Williams, but they don't have any slot guys. So, I'm sure he's training some of these guys. And, like I said, Brown talked about, these extra meetings he had all week, one-on-one meetings with Ronell Williams and learning technique. He said it is a different technique in the NFL than it is college, but, he's spending all the time he possibly can with Ronell Williams because I guess, Ronell Williams has nothing else to do because he doesn't have anybody to coach.
Yeah.
So he's got plenty of time.
It's very rare. I think this team, and I tell Jody all the time, I think this team, it's very rare where I don't understand their decision-making. Their decision-making usually makes sense to me. Now, sometimes they get it wrong, but the decision usually makes sense. Moving James Bradbury inside doesn't make sense to me. I can't make sense of it. He is a phenomenal all-pro outside cornerback. Now, because he's better than everybody else in the slot, I get that. But again, you're affecting 2 positions.
Right.
If Josh Jobe may be a better player than Mario Goodrich, but there's 2 parts to it, not just one. So you can't say, well, Jobe's better than Goodrich. All right, but Bradbury's not as good as Avonte Maddox in the slot, and Bradbury's way better than Josh Jobe outside. It doesn't. Yeah. I think it's a bad decision.
Well, here's where I'll get on the coaching staff's case, and that this is mostly directed at the head coach, Nick Sirianni. He likes to almost brag about the cross-training that the Eagles do, that they cross-train all the time, that they're very good at cross-training. Not surprised when a guy does well because they cross-train him at a time. Why haven't they cross-trained Ricks? Why hasn't he gotten some? Or maybe it's because they don't practice as much in the preseason as other teams. I'm just saying. The coach and I wouldn't bring it up if the coach didn't brag on it. He likes to brag on the cross-training they do, and it seems to me like they're crash course training a couple of guys to get in the slots. You have 2 significant injuries. That's harsh, but that's what you got to do. You have to prepare for worst case scenario. Along those lines, if Evans and or if both come up injured and can't go on Sunday, Evans and Brown, they're really short, specifically at the safety position. Tristan McCollum getting the elevation from the practice squad if both of the safeties are out this weekend?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, how much a liability would that be? I mean, here's another kid that is an undrafted kid, but they like enough to keep on the 69-man roster or whatever you want to call it with that practice squad.
His twin brother was on the box getting beat up by the Eagles last week.
Yeah. And listen, maybe we're making, when you look at what the Bucs did on Monday night, I mean, it's not like Evans or even Chris Godwin went crazy against this, this makeshift secondary. Chris Godwin had his streak of 16 straight games with 5 or more catches snapped. And that was the longest streak in the NFL, 16 straight games with 5+ catches gone. He only had 3 catches. So now Keenan Allen has that distinction. He's got 11 straight games with 5 or more catches. So, listen, whatever.
20 last week.
But that doesn't count. It's still one game. Listen, I give Sean Desai a lot of credit for what he's doing here. I mean, maybe they are training Eli Ricks and he's cross-training him. And it's not like the light bulb's going to go on overnight here when you do that. I know you would like to think it's a crash course, but if he's never done it, that's a big jump to go ahead and do that. Like Sidney Brown was saying, there's a lot of different technique things and different leverages you have to be aware of in the slot in the NFL versus college. So, maybe they are, and it's just not, some guys can get it, some don't. And some staffs are hesitant to cross-train rookies because they want them to learn one position and get immersed in that, learn that until it's like the back of their hand before they consider, moving him to another position and learning that position. So that could be the case. But yeah, I don't know about Tristan McCollum. I'm not even sure what
somebody's got to play safety. He's the only practice squad safety they have.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what he looks like, to be honest. I mean, I
Couldn't pick him out of a crowd, huh?
I don't think I could.
Neither could I.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of player he would
Tristan
be.
is up by the kickers, his locker room.
All right.
And if
Okay.
you saw, he looks exactly like Zion. They're twins.
I wish I knew what Zion looked like.
Right.
But,
You got to know what Zion looked like for that to be
yeah.
an assist.
I think Edmonds has played quite, he's done okay. And I think, Reed Blankenship at safety. I mean,
By
this
the way,
guy,
Reed's a great player.
he is a very, very solid player. I mean, an
The
interception.
NFL got that one wrong. How does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you look at him and he's a 5-year college starter and they're thinking he's old, but he's only, I think, 24 years old, maybe. But yeah, they're your safeties. If Evans can't go, it's Edmonds and Blankenship. And then, Sidney Brown, if he can't go, I don't know what you're going to do. Too bad Kayvon Wallace isn't around anymore.
Bradbury's going to play outside corner slot and safety.
Who
knows?
Yeah. And I'll answer your question, John, how the NFL got Reed Blankenship so wrong. TRAITS traits and the over-evaluation thereof. He's not that tremendously athletic. He probably ran a slow time. If you look it up, I'd love to know what he ran as his 40 at the combine. I guarantee you it was slow compared to the other safeties coming out that year. What are we going to do with this guy? He can't run. He's not that athletic. We're not drafting him. The Eagles gave him all of $5,000. Good on the Eagles. The Eagles were the one.
4.5, which is not bad for a safety. It's not, there's certain, Micah Fitzpatrick's probably 4.47 or somewhere in that range, but 4.55 is not bad. Yeah, he's a good athlete. That's what I mean. He's got good traits. I mean, he played at a small school, obviously. That factors into it. Yeah, he didn't have bad testing numbers. They were middle of the road, but they weren't bad. Yeah, that's one of those things where I have a difficult time understanding how they missed him. Because they usually find players who, at least to the point where they're going to be like 6-round picks, or as you mentioned, Jody, $5,000. Not only was he undrafted, he was unpaid. Yeah, and he was a great player at his level. As Ed mentioned, 5-year starter. First team all conference. He was on the Bednarik Award watch list, the Jim Thorpe Award. It's a mystery to me. And when you watch him play, it becomes an even greater mystery. I'm going to blame the scouts on that one. The entire, not the Eagles, the entire NFL.
At least the Eagles got him in for $5,000.
Yeah.
They get a W, even if it took them a long time. That's still a W. You got the player. The other 31 teams take an L on that one.
Yeah, and that interception, man. Usually, Ed, you've seen Slay at practice a bunch. He'll bait quarterbacks. He's so smart and savvy, and he's played a long time. 5-time Pro Bowl player. I saw him, Jalen's first year, I saw him bait him like 3 times and pick up passes in practice. He baited Baker Mayfield. He's a first-year starter, second-year player. He baited Baker Mayfield on that play. He saw him look to the left. There was only one receiver there. Then he went back, and Reed was just like, boom. He's not throwing it this way. And he baited him into that interception. Boy, yeah. Eagles found Nick Sirianni called Britton Covey a hidden gem. Reed Blankenship is a hidden diamond. I mean, he is just a good football player.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more hidden he is right now, or
might not be.
Yeah, he might not be. I mean, yeah, he's. What other trait he has that I really like is it could be the hottest training camp practice in summer, and they'll bring Reed Blankenship to the podium.
Hair never moves.
Man. He doesn't look like he's even sweating. He looks like he hadn't even practiced, like he just came out of an air-conditioned room. I mean, the guy just doesn't sweat. I don't know what that tells you, but
Well, all three of us got to be jealous of that hair. Yeah.
Not hard to beat for the three of us.
No.
All right, Ed, we've had you on for about 20 minutes and we haven't gone there yet. There goes Sam Howell's career. He had 2 okay weeks in a row, and then last week against the Buffalo Bills, how many sacks did 6?
9, wasn't it?
9 sacks by the Bills and 4 interceptions. He got the ball off, threw it to the other team, but he got the ball off rather than take another sack. How much fear should the Eagles have of Sam Howell coming into the link this weekend?
Yeah, I would have said, look out for Sam Howell until the Bills came in and, kind of made him, throw 4 interceptions. He was sacked 9 times. I mean, he's been sacked 19 times. And, Nick Sirianni explained Jalen Hurts' sack problem. Hurts had been sacked 7 times in the first 2 games. And he said it's not just the quarterback, right? It's the line play. It's the receivers running patterns. There's a lot that goes into a sack, but, he's been sacked 19 times. That's like 6.3 sacks per game. And, we saw the Eagles make a mess of Carson Wentz last year in their first game against the Commanders. It was at FedEx Field, that first game, but they sacked Wentz 9 times. And, listen, if Howell is going to sit there, the Eagles are going to have a field day. And maybe we'll see some edge rushers like Reddick and Sweat, finally notch some numbers, but you look at their line and, their offensive tackles have experience. You have the guy, Charles Leno, he's a 10th year guy, I believe. And then you have the Andrew Wiley, who played
from the Chiefs
in the Super Bowl. And
you need the crappy field. Andrew needs a crappy field.
He needs a crappy field. So, yeah, but these are tackles that should be holding up, and they're not, I guess, because it's not all on Sam Howell. And listen, I know I sang Sam Howell's praises, and I still kind of do. I think he was – well, I thought he was the best quarterback in that draft, but I think Brock Purdy also came in that draft in the 7th round, and right now he's probably the best quarterback that came out of that draft. And maybe Desmond Ridder. Ridder's doing some decent work in Atlanta for the Falcons now. Maybe he's the guy that might be pretty good from that draft. But I think Sam Howell will be okay. I mean, they're really high on him in Washington. It's a growing process. You're talking about a 5th-round pick. He was the 6th quarterback taken in that 2022 draft. I mean, he's not going to be Joe Montana overnight. He probably will never be Joe Montana, but I think you're going to have to take the good with the bad until things can even out a little bit for him. He only made 1 start as a rookie last year. That was the last game of the year. So, you're going to have to take the growing pains with Sam Howell, but they're high on him. They think he's the guy. I thought they might go away from him this week in Philadelphia and put in Jacoby Brissett, but they're not going to do that. They're going to stay the course with Sam Howell.
He had one bad game. You got to see if he learns from it.
But it was such a bad game.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, he's never going to be Joe Montana, but I don't think it's time to pull the plug on the kid either.
Right. And neither does Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera says the same thing, is let's let him grow. Let's see what he can be.
Yeah. I think you have to learn from that, and he's got to know going in, you got to get the football out this week. So, I mean, he's got to be helped by Eric Bieniemy. Terry McLaurin, I love him, one of the most underrated receivers in football. They have Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson. They're good at receiver. They got to have a good game plan to make sure the football's out of his hands quickly, and we'll see if they can get it done. But if he learns from what happened last week, I think it's fine. If he doesn't, and he sits back there like he's Carson Wentz and Jalen Carter has 3 sacks and Hassan Reddick gets going, then you start to say, all right, this guy's not picking it up. But I don't think it's time to pull the plug on Sam Howell. I agree with Ron Rivera. You got to let young quarterbacks learn from their mistakes. Otherwise, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, but like Jody said, though, like he got rid of the ball quick, but 4 times it went to the other team. So, you got to make sure you're getting rid of the ball quickly and making a good decision with it.
Yeah. And, by the way, I stick with Sam Howell this week because I don't like Jacoby Brissett either. And I know he was one of the more highly paid backups during this offseason, but I'm not a fan of the guy.
I like him as a backup, but I like him as a backup with JAKIB Brissett. I mean, if you're forced to play him, great. He's better than most backups. But yeah, you know what his ceiling is. I don't want him as my starter. So I'm not saying they made the right decision by going with Sam Howell long term, but they made their decision. They gotta let it play out, and they gotta at least let him have an opportunity to learn. This is a difficult week though because of that pass rush, obviously, for the Eagles.
And oh, by the way, the Commanders ran the ball well 1 out of their 3 games. Brian Robinson had a good game week number 2. Not so much this past week because nothing worked for the the Commanders this week because of the Bills' defense. They did get out to a 2-0 start, so their confidence level certainly shaken off the beatdown they took at home. But that they come in here with confidence because they were the only team that beat Jalen Hurts last year during the regular season. Is this a
20-1
game for the Eagles?
Yeah, that one loss is against the Commanders on a Monday Night Football in November.
The Commanders are the one.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So listen, that has to give him a shot of confidence. And I like Brian Robinson a lot. I mean, I liked him coming out of Alabama. But this Eagles defense, it's hard to run the ball against them now. With Jordan Davis, to me, is just he's like trying to block or wrestle a bear when you block him, or move a boulder out of the way of out of a hiking trail or something. I mean, this guy's just huge, tough to block. He's really made, to me, a huge difference in the run game. But just hard to move him. And he's taken sometimes 2 blockers, and that's freeing up Jalen Carter or Milton Williams, who's having a good year, or Fletcher Cox. That's freeing up these other guys to stop the run. And, if I'm another team, I'm trying to get outside. I'm not running the ball up the middle against this team. I'm trying to get outside and see what their linebackers can do on the edge. And I don't think we've seen that a whole lot. Brian Robinson, I don't think, is kind of a sweep the edge type runner. Maybe they try to get Samuel involved there, or whoever else their running backs are. But I wouldn't run the ball up the middle against this defense. So that's going to be a challenge for the Commanders to try to run the ball to take some of the pressure off Sam Howell. But listen, they did it last year. It was a different team. Obviously, they were able to run the ball. And that's when Howie Roseman said, hey, we got to get guys that can stop the run. Let's go get Linval Joseph and the Ndamukong Suh. And that's what he did, because the run game did hurt them in this game last year. I don't think it's going to be a factor this year for the Commanders to run the football. And that's to the Eagles' advantage. So I think it'll be close. Most of these games with the Commanders are typically close. NFC East game, first time for the Eagles in the NFC East. And the Commanders know that they can beat them because they already did last year. So, they're not going to shy away from anything. I love the defense. I love the Commanders' defense.
Oh, the front four, baby. Strength on strength against the Eagles' offensive line.
Yeah, that's great.
Kracz E. Make sure you follow Ed on Twitter, x.com. si.com/NFL/Eagles. Get the latest skinny on your favorite football team from one of the best in the business. I'll end it there. Offensive line versus, this offensive line. I can't say enough good things about this offensive line, Ed. Landon Dickerson, that one block where he got hurt, he says he didn't get hurt on that play, but he's gone from Pro Bowl level to all pro level. That's how well Landon Dickerson is playing. So you add him to Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson. Cam Jurgens has been seamless at right guard. Mm-hmm. And Jordan Mailata might be the best of the bunch the way he's playing. This somehow is better. It's only 3 games, but they've been better than they were last year. That's my opinion. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cam Jurgens, obviously, that's what we talked about most of the summer is, can he be the guy to step in there? He's too short. He's not big enough. I said all those things myself, but he's answered the bell, and he's doing well. And it's nice that when you're between Kelce and Lane Johnson, I mean, you got 2 possible Hall of Famers right there that you're playing right between. So, he's got some help with the communication and everything else. So that to me has really helped solidify this line. Isaac Siamalo was a great guard also. So it's hard to say, yeah, this line's better. So far, it has looked really good. Take away the Patriots game in the opener where they weren't communicating well and they struggled. But these last 2 games, they've been over 200 yards running the football. So, yeah, I think it's good. I'd like to see Jalen Hurts again, not get sacked as often as he is. And we saw that on Monday. He held up better against the pass rush. But, yeah, I'm not ready, I don't think, to go there to say they're better this year than last year. But they're getting there.
All right, Ed, 2-parter for me before we let you run. Number one, how important is today's injury report? Because they've got a couple of safeties that are maybes, and sometimes maybes turn into cannot play, and that would leave them awfully short at that position. Thursday on a week with a Sunday at 1 o'clock game. What do you learn from the injury report today?
Yeah, the closer you get and the more these guys pop up on it, the bigger question mark they become for Sunday. And, Justin Evans' injury is listed as a neck. And listen, that's not good on any level. So that might be tough to come back from. And then, like I mentioned with Brown, it's a hamstring. And you have to be very careful with those, obviously, because like Sydney said after the game, a 1-week injury can become a 4-week injury if you're not careful with a hamstring. So those are 2 pretty concerning injuries, and I think you still have Friday, to get well if these guys pop up again on the injury report, and I think they will. I think both won't practice again today, Evans and Brown. But Friday's the one I'd be really concerned with, because then you have to make your determination on whether or not they're going to play, and maybe they'll list them as questionable or they'll rule them out right away. I don't know, but yeah, I think Friday's a little more important with the injury report. But today it doesn't make it any less important today. I mean, it's still a pretty big deal.
All right. And when Ed Kracz for Sports Illustrated next writes about a short conversion on a quarterback run by the Eagles quarterback, will you describe it as the tush push, the cheek sneak, which happens to be my personal favorite, or the brotherly shove? Which of the 3 will you be using when you next need to write about the Eagles conversion?
I do like the brotherly shove. I mean, that kind of cements it as a Philadelphia thing, right? It's a Philly thing. Cheek sneak sounds a little too risque for me.
See, I think tush push is worse than cheek sneak.
It might be, but I've been calling it the tush push for the last, year or so.
Yeah,
so I probably will stay with the tush push.
Right,
Boy, I wish it would go away, only for a topic of conversation. I mean, the Eagles are getting it anyway. If they didn't push, it's got to do with Jalen deadlifting 600 pounds.
Yeah,
they're getting a regular quarterback sneak. It drives me nuts that people spend so much time.
That's why I asked Ed Kracz. All right, hey, good luck to you and Sam Howell this week, Eddie. Enjoy watching your guy get crushed down at Lincoln.
By the way, Jody didn't want you on the show last week because Sam was playing well. So, full disclosure. He waited till a bad week.
Jody didn't want you on the show last week because I knew Sam Howell was playing the Eagles the week thereafter.
Yeah.
Now I got lucky that he played as shitty as he did, so I could rub a little salt in the wounds. I'll readily admit to that I got a little lucky that all of a sudden the Buffalo Bills showed up and made his life a living hell. But yeah, that's why we had to.
He was playing well. He had a 2-week spike though.
It was a bad class of quarterbacks. Let's face it. There's not a lot of time in those roughs there.
Kenny Pickett's 2-1. He was the best. He should have been the first drafted. He was. And he's playing to about his level, which is good. Not great, but good. Sam Howell, not so good. Ed, always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for helping.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, guys.
Ed Kracz, Sports Illustrated, here with some Birds 365. All right, we got another one of our solid Eagle Beat guys coming up a little bit later, as in 18 minutes from now. Chris Franklin from NJ.com going to join us here on Birds 365. Stay with us.